Hello, everyone. Welcome to the presentation series on alcohol and drug prevention and treatment based on Buddhist psychology. My name is Shakya Nanayakkara. I'm a lawyer and a psychologist both, and I have been involving in this alcohol and drug prevention and treatment for last 35 years. So I'm going to share with you some knowledge that I have gained in working in this field. Secondly, I recently published a book on this alcohol and drug prevention. The name of the book is A Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, a Buddhist Psychology Manual of Prevention and Treatment. So in this series, I will be explaining you chapter by chapter on how we could utilize the wisdom, the old wisdom existed in this world, the Buddhist psychology, to solve the problem of alcohol and drug issues in the world. So you may be a alcohol and drug prevention and treatment practitioner, or you may be familiar with Buddhist counseling, Buddhist psychology, and teachings of the Buddha, or probably you may be a newcomer to this field. So let me first welcome all of you to this presentation series. Let me share my screen with you now to identify the drug problem in this world. So if you look at the statistics, UNODC released its annual World Drug Report 2024 in last June and said that there are nearly 300 million drug users globally are there. And they may be using cannabis, heroin, or any other like stimulants like methamphetamine. So all of them are virtually suffering with their substance use. And if you look at the alcohol usage, worldwide around 2.6 million deaths were caused by alcohol consumption in 2019. So an estimated of 400 million people, or 7% of the world population aged 15 years and older, lived with alcohol use disorder. Of this, 209 million people lived with alcohol dependency. So we can see the gravity of this problem. How many users are there in this world using alcohol? According to the 2019 report, 92% of men are current users and 35% of women are using alcohol. But very recently, WHO has given a very important statement. The World Health Organization now published a statement, the Lancet Public Health Report. When it comes to alcohol consumption, the report says, when it comes to alcohol consumption, there is no safe amount that does not affect health. So there are no any health benefits in alcohol use. The WHO has stated it in that manner now. So people who use alcohol even ultimately suffering. So we will look into this in our presentation at the later stages. So the tobacco use, the smoked tobacco, the smokeless tobacco, there are about 8 million people each year, right, smoking tobacco and die. 8 million people for a year. And then these people, some die due to exposure to the second-hand smoke. 1.3 million actually die because of the exposure of the smoke, tobacco smoke. Therefore, we can see that people are actually suffering with the substance use, and not only them, their family members and the society at large suffering from the alcohol and drug use. Therefore, we have to find a solution for this. Can the Buddhist psychology provide the solution? That is the task of this series of presentation. With some confidence, I could say that definitely the Buddhist psychology can provide a kind of everlasting solution, sustainable solution for the alcohol and drug problem in this world. So that is why that we have to study these issues and try to make the facts aware for the other people, how in the past this has been solved with the light of the Buddhist psychology. So for that, we have to raise the question, why do people use alcohol and drugs? We know the individual use alcohol and tobacco and other drugs as they have developed attachment and craving for those drugs due to ignorance. Now there are some words coming: attachment, craving, ignorance. The attachment and craving, in Buddhist psychology, we say lobha. Ignorance, we call moha. We are going to dissect these things and see how the attachment is developed and how to remove this attachment. So those are the things that we are going to discuss mainly in this series of presentation. Even the children and youth also could be prevented from initiating drug use with the right kind of education through threefold training that is called Sila Samadhi Prajna, threefold training and developing the necessary wisdom. The Buddhist psychology is enriched with various techniques and methodologies to remove attachment and craving, and these methods could be adopted for the prevention and treatment of alcohol and drug use. So based on this Buddhist psychology, I have developed a manual. The name of the manual is A Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, a Buddhist Psychology Manual of Prevention and Treatment. So if you look at the cover of the book, this is the book, A Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, Buddhist Psychology Manual of Prevention and Treatment by Shakya Nanayakkara, and that's me. So if you look at the chapters, it's a fairly big book actually, about nearly 300 pages, A4 size. And the content part, there is the preface, and then the introduction part by Professor Diyanath Samarasinghe, my mentor, and he is a well-known professor of psychiatry in Sri Lanka. The chapter 1, I'm discussing the Buddhist perspective of alcohol and drug use. But that is not the starting point of our discussion. We directly come to the chapter 2, and later on we will discuss the chapter 1. The chapter 2 is understanding the aetiology of alcohol and drug use through Buddhist psychology. So we have to raise the question, why people use alcohol and drugs? And we saw the craving, the attachment is there. So let us look at more carefully and examine in detail how the craving occurs. So that is in chapter 2. Then we come to chapter 3, Abhidharmic analysis of alcohol and drug use. So Abhidhamma is the highest level of dharma discussed in Buddhist psychology. That is, in Abhidhamma, we are mostly talking about the mind, then the mental states, the cētasika, the mental concomitants or the mental factors, then the cognitive psychology of Buddhism, all that is there in this Abhidhamma. So we are going to look at this alcohol use and the liberation from alcohol and drug use through this lens of Abhidhamma. Then the chapter 4, we discuss working with communities and initiating community action, that is mainly on prevention work. So then we see how to educate the community on misconceptions about alcohol and drugs to make them aware of the reality of the substance use. Because we will see in that chapter and even in this discussion, so we have our perverted notions about the alcohol and other drugs. Then we discuss in chapter 6, working with youth, primary and secondary prevention, working with children, working with women, all based on the Buddhist psychological principles. Then in chapter 9, we start discussing the treatment part of the substance use. So it starts with the facilitating the behavioral change, the virtue, the sila, and for the liberation of substance use. Then the chapter 11 is on mindfulness practices. The chapter 11, 12, and 13 mostly on the mindfulness practices. But we know even now there are these mindfulness approaches using in prevention as well as treatment. But you will see some difference here because we are trying to bring the wisdom, the prajna part to the mindfulness approach. Then chapter 12, bringing about the cognitive transformation through contemplation of Dhamma, that is the Dhammanupassana, contemplation of Dhammas, the cause and effect of the substance use that we are going to understand. Then in chapter 13, we are discussing the Buddhist psychological methods for cognitive transformation of alcohol and other drugs. The final chapter, The Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, which summarize the whole thing. And we will see how the Buddhist psychology could contribute to the prevention and treatment of substance use, including alcohol and tobacco, to solve this global problem. So if you are a psychologist, if you are a Buddhist monk, if you are a addiction psychiatrist, or any other doctor, teacher, so understanding the Buddhist psychological way of prevention and treatment will be helpful for you. It will help you to find solutions and to help others to quit the substance use and liberate their minds from substance use. So now let's come to the second chapter. As we discuss, I just left the first chapter for later discussion, and the second chapter of the book, A Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, Buddhist Psychology Manual of Prevention and Treatment, the chapter 2 is understanding the aetiology of alcohol and drug use through Buddhist psychology. You know what is aetiology, right? Aetiology is the study of the cause of the particular disease. When you have a problem, what is the cause of that? So we can just give some simple answers to that. People use substances because of the availability. It is there. True enough. When it is not available, people can't use it. But we know there are so many things available in this world, but we are not using, or we are not recognizing some things. But we get used, we are trying to use certain things when we have a special interest on those things. So when we look at the cause of the substance use, we have to ask the question, why do people use alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs? And then you will see it is not simply the availability, but there are some other underlying factors that motivated the individual to use substances. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss the main cause for the substance use. Once we summarize the answers of the question, why do people use alcohol and drugs? The simple answer to this question from both Buddhist and modern psychological perspectives is the same. That is, people use alcohol and drugs because they crave for using alcohol and drugs. The craving, the attachment, the urge to use substances. And we know when handling the drug issue, drug problem, the controlling the drug issue and the drug problem, there is this stock phrase that we are always using, the supply reduction and the demand reduction. But when we see the demand reduction side, the demand for substance use is not actually natural. It is created within individuals. So if you take a young person, for eating sweets, they have a natural tendency to eat sweets. Or when they have thirsty, they drink water. So there is a natural urge to use water or drink water. But for substances, of course, when we examine carefully, we will see that there is no natural tendency or the natural urge for substances, but this is created. Sometimes created by the alcohol industry, tobacco industry through their advertising and marketing propaganda, through the propaganda. And the other way, even with the social learning, people, even they learn through their parents sometimes, I would say. So let us examine all these things at the latter stages of this presentation. And we know there is a demand created within the individual around alcohol, heroin, and cannabis, tobacco, or other substances. This is the attractive image. This attractive image is created around substances. This demand is not natural but created by the alcohol and tobacco industry and drug mafia and through social learning. And if you look at the current psychological approaches in DSM-5, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the 5, now what is available is the 5th one. During our learnings, it was DSM-4, now it is DSM-5. When defining substance use disorder, one criterion is craving and urges to use substance, the craving urge. So what is the term for craving and urge in Buddhist psychology? We use the word, a mental factor called lobha. Now you can see that here, the lobha, L-O-B-A, lobha, that is how you read the Pali terms, the Pali words, the lobha, the greed. In simple term, it is greed, the craving, lobha. But when we look at the word lobha in Pali, it's very difficult to translate into English mainly. So we have to use this word lobha in Buddhist psychology, but I will try to give you some similar meanings to this for a better understanding. This lobha, greed, is one of the 3 unwholesome roots, the akusala mula, unskilled roots, akusala mula. The other 2 are the ill will and ignorance. Anyway, we'll come to that later. The lobha represent a mental state of grasping, clinging to things, often driven by craving. So the grasping, clinging, and craving all are explaining the word lobha. The attachment to substance, attachment to heroin, attachment to substance use behavior, all that. The other 2, as I mentioned, the hatred and ill will, hatred or ill will, the dosa, we call it dosa, and the ignorance, moha. So the lobha, dosa, moha are the 3 unwholesome roots, unskillful roots that we are discussing in this presentation, because you have to have kind of understanding on these issues if you are looking at the substance use through Buddhist psychology. So let us go a little bit further about the craving. This craving or tanha, another word is tanha, or motivation for alcohol and drug consumption, can be broadly explained as desire, impulse, or wish. So that is another way, the desire, impulse, wish. In Pali, we call it chanda, chanda. So this is bad chanda, the akusala side of the chanda. So your desire to use alcohol, your impulse to use alcohol, your wish to use alcohol, that is called chanda. The holding, upadana, you are holding. Later on we will see, it is not that the drug and come holds you, that you are holding the substance. So that is why the responsibility is there for you to release your bonding with the substance. It is your responsibility. So the upadana, very beautiful word in Pali, upadana, holding. Then the affection or liking, the prema, the attachment, adana, the bondage, bandhana, or attractiveness, the manyuta, towards alcohol and drug use. So those are the words that explain the lobha. So if you look at all these words, it can be summarized through Lober, the one of the 52 mental factors, which we are going to learn in the 3rd chapter when we discuss Abhidhamma. Okay, so the substance are there, available everywhere maybe, but not everyone is using substances. So only when someone develops the attachment or craving, they go to substance use. So that is described here. The substance can be there. If there is no substance, there cannot be substance use. That is also correct. But we know when it is available, people use it not simply because it is available, but because of the attachment or craving, which leads to the substance use. The most significant part of prevention treatment is removing or eradicating the attachment or the greed or craving for substance. Once you remove this part, the attachment and craving, even the substance is available, people are not going to use it because they don't have the attachment or craving. We can see that only 52% of the male population using alcohol. What about the other 48%? Maybe that they don't have the attachment or craving, at least majority of them. So we in prevention and treatment, we have to look into those aspects. But unfortunately, I know that I'm teaching in university also for last 20 years. I'm teaching the subject health promotion, and under that one area that I am discussing based on the Western psychology, the alcohol and drugs prevention. There we are not using it we are not mixing it with the Buddhist psychology part. But what I can see is there is no any steady way of introducing this removing of attachment and craving in Western psychology. Okay, so let us discuss this further, and you also can see this. The most significant part of prevention and treatment, therefore, is removing and eradicating this attachment, greed, or craving for the substance use. It is more a psychological transformation than a biological one. So that is why sometimes we say that there are no medicine for, there are no any pills for, overcome the attachment. So when a drug user comes, he has many issues. Of course, we know he has his physical problems where a doctor should treat them. Then they have the psychological conditions, the comorbidities, co-occurring disorders, mostly a psychiatrist should handle that. Then he has these psychosocial issues with the substance use created. So that can be also addressed by a counselor or a psychologist. But most of all, the attachment, the bondage, the craving part of it. So to remove that, we can go to Buddhist psychology and see the methodologies used in the past to overcome the craving in Buddhist teaching, especially in the early Buddhist teachings. So, you know that people develop habitual greed or gluttony for substances. Greed is a state of the greed is a state of lack or not enough or unsatisfactoriness. Whatever you have, you need more. You need more. So that is a part of the greed in explanation. So one of the Buddhist psychology books is Dhamma Sangani, the first book. There are 7 parts of the Abhidhamma books, and one is Dhamma Sangani, Vibhāga, Dhatugata, Yamaka, Paṭṭhānā. So likewise, there are many psychological books. So Dhamma Sangani, the first book, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, gives synonymous for the lobha, greed. Let us look at it. Very interesting to see that. So the liking. So people have the liking for substances, right? Wishing or expectancies. They use it for achieving certain things. maybe to forget problems, to have, pleasure, to be macho, like, they have expectancy, longing, fondness for substances, affection, attachment, lust, cupidity, craving, passion, self-indulgence, possessiveness, avarice, desire for five sense objects, and desire for wealth and fame, all are in this word lobha. So when we see the greed for substances, and if you look at the relationship between the drug user and the substances, you can see that they are not only using substance, but they love, they adore substances. That is the main issue, which is very psychological. So this liking, they have a wishing, they have a longing, they have the fondness, affection, attachment to substance, lust, then the craving, passion, self-indulgence, possessiveness. So all that is there. So this is the part of aetiology that we explain, the lobha or the greed for substances. So if you go back to the original question, why do people use substances? Mainly because they have created a demand, and we call it craving or the urge. So that is very important to understand the nature of the addiction or substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder. So in Buddhist psychology, there is a book called Visuddhimagga, which is written in Pali, but we have now several English translations to this book. And one of the translations done by Nayanaponika Thera explains in Visuddhimagga, the greed has the characteristic of grasping an object. So it has the characteristic of grasping the object. So once you see, so grasping the substances, like bird lime or monkey lime, you get attached to, fixed to. Its function is sticking. You get stick to the substance. You get stick to the alcohol or any other drug. Like meat put into hot pan. So these are the examples given in this Visuddhimagga. It is, once you put meat into the hot pan, it at a certain stage, it gets stick and it is very difficult to remove that. So the lobha is like that, the greed is like that, the attachment, the stickiness of it. And it is manifested not to give up. When the greed is created to alcohol or other drugs, so it is difficult to give up. So the intention is not to give up. So we have to understand in that light the addiction, the greed. And this is very original translations of the Pali books written on Buddhist psychology. Right. Then it is manifested by as not giving up, like the dye of lamp black. That means when the lamp black, those days, the traditional oil lamps, when they burn, this carbon deposits, and when it touches in our hands, it's very difficult to remove it. So those examples were taken to explain the greed. Its proximate cause is seeing enjoyment in things and lead to bondage. Very beautiful explanation to explain the addiction. So they see enjoyment through that, which is not the truth of the substances. And even now, these people say euphoria. Later on, we are going to see whether it is the chemical effect of the substance or is it mind-made. So even the Pali text says its proximate cause is seeing enjoyment in these and lead to bondage. Ultimately, you get bondage, you get a bond created with the substance, swelling with the current of craving. Swelling with the current of craving, it should be regarded as carrying beings along with the state of misery as a swift flowing river does to the great ocean. So the lobha, the greed, carries away people, just as a river taking things to the great ocean. So this is how the Vishuddhimarga explain the greed. So you can put this to the substance use and see how alcohol or drug user sees substances. So when a person becomes dependent on alcohol or drugs, his whole life starts to revolve around this alcohol and other drug use behavior, neglecting his other life activities. They are stick to the substance use. Even the modern day DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is a reference book on mental health and brain-related conditions and disorders, explain that the substance use disorders span a wide variety of problems arising from substance use and over 11 different criteria. So there are 11 criteria, and it explains the pathetic situation of the ill reputation of the alcohol or drug user. Now let us look at this 11 criteria explained in DSM-5, and you will see, and I just invite you to see the craving part, the attachment part in all the criteria. Taking the substance in more significant amounts or longer than the individual meant to. Why? We have to ask that question. So that is one criteria. Taking the substance in more significant amount or longer than the individual meant to. Then comes wanting to cut down. I want to cut it down or stop using the substance, but not managing to. The control has gone. Now they think that they are being controlled by the substance. Okay. So the urge, the craving, you can see there also. Spending much time getting the substance, using the substance, or recovering from the substance use. So early morning, right? They mostly have the late start. First, they have to find the money. So they spend some time on finding money. Then they spend time on searching the substances, searching heroin, methamphetamine, to find it. Not easy, not available easily. So then they go and buy it. Then they have to come back to a hiding place and using it. All time consuming. Then they become drowsy, uncomfortable. Then they have to lie down for some time. So most of their time is now spent on substance use. So spending much time using or recovering from substance use. And craving and urges to use substance. So that is, they are very directly said, even the DSM-5 recognize this, the craving and all other 11 criteria, you will see the craving is there. Not managing to do what you should at work, do at work, home or school because of the substance use. You neglect your housework, your professional work, okay, and school work, because of the substance use, and continuing to use even when it causes problems in relationship. Sometimes you have many problems with your wife and with the other children or the other bosses in the working place, but yet you keep on continuing the substance use. Number 8, using substances repeatedly even when they put you in danger. And continuing to use even when you know you have a physical or psychological problem that could have been caused or made worse by the substance use. Then need more substance to get the desired effect. So we call it tolerance. But we have to see whether this tolerance is actually physical or mind-made. There is a physical component, but you will see quite soon in this presentation, mostly it is mind-made, the tolerance. You need more substance to get the desired effect. Then the development of withdrawal symptoms can be relieved by taking more of the substance. When you don't get substances, you feel really bad within you, and we call it the withdrawal discomfort. But very strange thing that you can use, and this can be experienced by any drug user. This is their experience. Early morning when they wake up, they find this withdrawal discomfort because there is no substance in their system according to them. and they go to the pusher to buy it. They buy it there and put it into the pocket and coming back to the hiding place. And quite strangely, in their return journey, their withdrawal discomfort vanishes. They haven't used the substance yet. Remember, it is in their pocket, but their withdrawal discomfort vanishes. No, they don't see. They don't see any withdrawal discomfort. How does this happen? So the drugs have not gone to their system yet. It is in the pocket. So we can see that this happened because of the change of the mindset, mostly. So now, diagnostic criteria over 12 months period, how we diagnose the thing. So if they have 2 to 3 symptoms, we call the addiction or the level of dependency or the substance use disorder level is mild. Then 4 to 5 symptoms available, then it is moderate, and over 6 or more symptoms, then it is severe. So that is how we diagnose the substance use problems according to DSM-5. And later on, we will look into the ICD-10 and ICD-11, and we will see there also this craving, the definition. So now we saw, and now we have a kind of a understanding on what lobha is. This is greed, and it can be explained in various ways. Even in the text, what is in black is what is in the book, the paragraphs that I took. This craving tanha or motivation for alcohol and drug consumption can be broadly explained as a desire, impulse, wish. That is called chanda. I said chanda. Holding, upadana, right? You hold. Then the holding, upadana. Then the affection or liking, that is called prema in Sanskrit. Attachment, adana. Bondage, bandhana. Attractiveness, manyuta, towards the alcohol and drugs. Now, to explain this, we can use a very known example. Very recently, I visited drug treatment camp. They were there for some time and they all managed their withdrawal discomfort, and they did not report the withdrawal discomfort when I went there, but they all asked from the counselors and from me some medicine to overcome this drug problem. They think that if there is a pill and if they just swallow the pill, this addiction will, they can get over the addiction. Then I asked them, I just told them a story. I asked them, do you know the story of Romeo and Juliet? And they all said, yes, we know the story of Romeo and Juliet. Even in Sri Lanka, it is very popular. The Romeo and Juliet story, the play written by William Shakespeare. Now, let us take the Romeo and Juliet story as an example. Romeo, you know that Romeo is madly in love with Juliet. So there was lobha content. Romeo had this lobha towards, or prema, adana, bandhana, that means love. The Romeo adore Juliet. Now, if you ask them, Romeo adores Juliet. If you ask them, how does Romeo feel about Juliet? I asked that question from those drug users there who are in the treatment process. Okay, people who are suffering with the substance use disorder, and some of them were with the alcohol use disorder. I just asked them, how does Romeo feel about Juliet? And they come up with various, nice explanations. How? Now you can see the Romeo Juliet story here, the play. Even in this picture, you can see that. Okay. If you ask from Romeo about the Juliet, the Romeo might say, I cannot live without Juliet. the love, the bondage, the attachment is so much. I always think about Juliet from morning to evening, whole night, sometimes awake, thinking about Juliet. I always think about Juliet. I do anything to get Juliet. This is how the Romeo is thinking about Juliet, no? Actually, these things were reported by those people in that camp. Do not ask me to leave Juliet. That is, they say. I cannot think of a life without Juliet. Juliet gives me all the strength for me to living. Okay. So those are the things. So now think about how can we help Romeo to get out of this problem? Now, suppose that Juliet is not really faithful and their parents, the Romeo's parents got to know about it. And Juliet is married, not the real story, anyhow. And they want to get this Romeo away from Juliet. So, are there any medicines for this? Is there a pill that could be given to Juliet? Sorry, Romeo? No. You can't do it in that manner. But a good psychologist or a counselor with some psychological interventions may help Romeo. Okay? So, this bondage, this adhana, this grabbing, this greed, this love, okay, all can be explained through the word lobha. Lobha. That is the Pali term that we are discussing. The reason, the craving, the urge. The Pali term is lobha. Now, then in my discussion with those the people with the substance use disorder, right? They were in the process of treatment. I just asked them to cut the word Juliet here and insert the word heroin, because majority of them were heroin users. So then they come up with this kind of sentences. Now let us replace Juliet with heroin. What are the sentences? I cannot live with heroin. I always think about heroin, not Juliet. We have cut Juliet here. I do anything to get heroin. So I will do anything to get heroin. Do not ask me to leave heroin or heroin use. I cannot think of a life without heroin. Heroin gives me all the strength for me to live. So those are the sentences. Then I ask them, whose story is this? I cannot live with heroin, without heroin. I always think about heroin. I do everything, anything to get heroin. Do not ask me to stop heroin use. I cannot think of a life without heroin. Heroin gives me all the strength for me to live. Then I ask them, whose story is this? This shows the bondage created between. They all said, this is our story, sir. They said, this is our story. This shows the bondage created between the individual and the heroine. This shows the liking, wishing, the expectancies, the longing, the fondness, affection, attachment, lust, cupidity, craving, passion, self-indulgence, possessiveness, and avarice created in the individual's mind over the drugs, heroin. This is the addiction created in the mind of the substance user. So according to the Buddhist psychology, addiction is a mental disease or a mental condition created by the individual through a process. Now, we are trained to, say, oh, this is a brain disease. Drug use is a brain disease. And we saw pictures also, the addicted brain and the normal brain. So we are very, used to see these things. But now we talk about the disorder. It came to a brain disorder. That's a progress, anyhow. And we say earlier, we used to say cannot be cured. And now we say it can be cured due to the brain plasticity. Okay, whatever. According to Buddhist psychology, This is a disorder, mental disorder, or a mind disease. We can say it's a mind disease, not a brain disease. Of course, the mind is based on brain. So the physical functioning is the brain. I'm not actually ignoring or I'm not undermining that part. But we know, according to Buddhist psychology, the addiction can be cured. There is no permanent addiction because there is no anything permanent. Everything is anicca or impermanence is there. So the addiction is also impermanent or anicca. So that will actually enhance the self-efficacy of the substance user. So according to Buddhist psychology, this is a problem of the mind. And we are going to look into that. The mind is filled with this lobber towards the substance, the craving, the tanha towards the substance. So according to Buddhist psychology, addiction is a mental disease or a mental condition created by individual through a process. But there are many external influences that force him to create that attractive image or craving around alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So there are environmental factors that create that craving in him. It is not natural. Through environment, they create this demand. So many individuals with AUD and SUD problems, that alcohol use disorder and the substance use disorder, not only use substance but worship and adore substance. They worship, virtually they worship the substance, and using substance become their religion sometimes. Rituals attached to substance use become their day-to-day practice. So on one side, they adore, and the other side, just as a religion, they not only believe, they worship the substance. They think all my problems are solved only when I use substances. So now here, I would like to draw your attention to another area, but pardon me if this is not very appropriate for in your context, but let me raise the question, why do we need a religion? Why do we practice a religion? This is the other question I raised on that particular day with the SUD individuals. I asked them, you are practicing religions and you have seen people practicing religion. Why do people practice religion? Then several answers came. I also asked you to just think about, why do people need religion? Maybe some people these days, they don't practice a religion, but majority still practice. So they say, it gives me a meaning and purpose to my life, right? I feel really good after engaging in the practice. I fear something bad will happen if I do not engage in the rituals. So that is why they are practicing, some people. It gives me enormous satisfaction. Shared rituals, worship, and traditions foster the sense of belonging and connectedness, reducing feeling of isolation. They might say, that is why I am using substance. It provides comfort and solace in the face of life's uncertainties, hardships, and tragedies. So there's kind of relief in practicing the religion. So it can offer hope and resilience. It is the culture and tradition. So those are the things they come. So individuals have created a bond with their religion. It will be very difficult for them to change their religion or drop their religion and religious practices. There are no medicines for this change. Suppose that we want to change someone's religion, practicing religion. Can you change the religion that they practice with introducing some medicine? No. But a good psychological approach might be, right? The thinking process, a cognitive transformation or brainwashing could facilitate the process, not drugs, not medicine. Drug users also have created a weave on substance use, which leads to creating a bond or attachment with that substances. So we have to see that attachment with the substances. Buddhist psychology or early Buddhist teaching introduced various methods of eradicating these kinds of bonds, attachments, cravings, which could be used in prevention and treatment to liberate someone's mind from alcohol and drug use. That is why how Buddhist psychology comes to the scene, right? The reason is craving. The most immediate reason is craving. There may be some other reasons. We are going to look into that also. But the final pathway for the substance use is through this craving, attachment, urge, bondage, right? Holding, grasping. So those are the words. So the one word that we use in Pali, there are many other Pali words for all the terms, but is lobha, the nature of the mind, the mental concomitant or the mental factor is the greed, the lobha. The use of alcohol and drug is associated with complex combination of personal and social factors we know, as I said. In addition to availability, the acceptability of the alcohol, the people accept it, right? General population, everyone is using in my town. That is how the drug users say, the acceptability of the alcohol and social milieu that recognize it as a pleasurable and positive also promote alcohol and drug use. The social milieu that alcohol and drug use is pleasurable. So that is also the pleasure, seeking pleasure. That is also part of craving. Right. These factors encourage individuals to initiate and continue the use of alcohol and drugs. Those who are most vulnerable to alcohol and drug use are generally alienated from families because there is a control. Once you are with the family, to deviate from some certain social norms is not easy, right? So we can see that vulnerability with the generally alienated from families, schools, and religious institutions, and are also more susceptible to specific psychological and physical problems. Though those who initiate the use of alcohol and drugs often do so with the expectation that their problems will be alleviated, in reality, the problems they face increase due to the consequences of the alcohol and drug use. They use substance to forget problems, but ultimately they are reminded of all the forgotten problems also. Quite opposite what they expected. And in addiction studies, we talk about the risk factors and the protective factors. Now here, I like to look into that risk factors and the protective factors. We know that children with early aggressive behavior, then the genetic disposition, those are the risk factors, parental alcohol exposure, lack of parental supervision, academic problems in studies, then the undiagnosed mental health problems, peer substance use, drug availability, poverty, peer rejection, child abuse or neglect are some of the risk factors associated with the increased likelihood of youth substance use. So we call these are the risk factors. So removing these risk factors is also important. But even you remove all these risk factors, if the craving is there, if the bondage is created, the tendency is to use substances. Now, if you look at the alcohol usage, and we know now WHO never supports the alcohol use because they say there is no safe limit in alcohol use. Every usage is harmful. If you use more harmful, that's a different thing. Right. And later on, we will see whether are we getting what we expect from even alcohol. So we have to question it very intelligently. Okay. Right. Then we know the protective factors, the parent-child conflict, conflict, inadequate supervision from the monitoring. These are also actually risk factors. Low parental warmth, lack of inconsistent discipline, parental hostility, harsh discipline, low parental aspiration for children, child abuse are also some kind of risk factors. So these are the things. But we have to ask the question, why? Right? When people have problems, why do they use alcohol or substances? When they are poor, right? When people are poor, why do they use alcohol and other drugs? So that is the very important question. Now, without having any biases, please look at this question. That is called bare attention. Later on, we will discuss. Even in mindfulness, it starts with the bare attention. That means look at the problem, look at the issue without any prejudgments, right? Without any biases, without having any concept. Just look at this. So now we are focusing our bare attention on when someone is poor, why he is using drugs. When someone is, because of the inadequate supervision and monitoring from parents, why do they go for substance use? That is the question that we have to ask. Then only that we can find the real etiological factors of substance use. And we discuss. It is nothing but the craving, attachment. But we have to ask the question, why? What is the created value around substance that would encourage someone to use them? We can examine the second unskillful root now. The akusala mula, the dosa. Dosa is the anger, ill will, hatred. Okay? Some people use substance just to punish their parents or family members. I use alcohol. Even I used to run 4 treatment centers when I was the chairman, National Dangerous Drugs Control Board in my country. So when asked from the individual, why did you use substances? They say sometimes, well, I wanted to punish my parents. I wanted to punish my girlfriend. So ultimately, they have punished themselves. So this is the part of anger, the dosa, and it is also akusala mula. But when you are angry, we have to see, when you are angry, why do you use alcohol? But when you are angry, why do you use heroin than doing any other thing? Because they have learned something. They have added value to alcohol, and that is called the craving, attachment, or whatever, giving value to that substance, right? So those is a mental factor of hatred, ill will, or anger. Some individuals use substance just to punish their parents or family members due to their ignorance. So that is the ignorance. They cannot see that they are actually punishing themselves. Buddhist psychology extends the range of hatred, dosa, beyond simple anger and enmity to include variety of negative emotions such as disappointment, dejection, anxiety, despair. All that mental states are coming with dosa, the hatred, if you look at. Later on, when we do the Abhidharmic analysis, you will see all this is nothing but dvesha, or the dosa. Hatred and all its degree is also a state of dissatisfaction. Through objectively, it arises in response to undesired people or circumstances. It is true, origins are subjective and internal, chiefly frustrated desire and wounded pride. So this is what the Nayanopanika Thera in the book called The Vision of Dharma, how that Venerable Bhikkhu Nayanaponika Thera explained those. Even the Dhammasangani book, which I mentioned earlier also, Abhidhamma Pitaka, say hatred, some similar words, dislike, disgust, revulsion, resentment, grudge, ill humor, vexation, irritability, antagonism, aversion, anger, wrath, vengefulness. All these are. So the if you look at this anxiety, right, depression, all are coming under this dosa. When people are dissatisfied, then we have to raise the question. When people are dissatisfied, why do they use alcohol or drugs? You may have answers, but once again examine, right, how it goes through this craving once again, the value addition. They have learned from their parents, when people have problems, they have to use, this is misconception, they have to use substances. So this is moha, the ignorance, because they have created an attractive image of positive image around the substance, they have created an attachment or bondage to substance. This is nothing but lobha or craving created through the ignorance, moha. Now we can see once again, even the risk factors, when the risk factors are available, but they go to substance use through craving, lobha, or ignorance, moha, right? They don't see the reality, the moha. So the lobha, we have discussed very important three factors. What are these? Lobha, dosa, moha. Lobha is the craving, greed, attachment. Dosa is ill will, anger, depression, anxiety. Then the moha is ignorance. Okay, moha. Then we know the positive factors. Positive factors is reliable support and discipline from the caregivers, adequate socio-economic resources for the family, mastery of academic skills in maths, reading, following rules for behavior at home, at school and public places, good peer relations, consistent discipline, positive parenting between school and families, high academic standards, positive physical development, emotional self-regulation. There are so many positive factors, but we have to raise the question. Very important question is here. How much positive, how much protective are those protective factors? I repeat that question once again. How much protective are these protective factors? Haven't you seen people with all these protective factors finally goes to substance use or alcohol use? If you think about the alcohol use, it is normally general people, the 52% of the men, 33% of women use alcohol. Don't you think that they didn't have these positive factors? The majority had these positive factors, but there is one part, the ignorance about alcohol, the illiteracy about alcohol and other drugs. That is why they are using. That is what we are going to discuss in future. Therefore, without removing the attractive image and craving and the ignorance about alcohol and drugs, these protective factors have limited protection. So that is why in prevention, in treatment, removing the attractiveness from the substance, removing the attachment to substance is extremely important, because that is the final pathway that leads to substance use. The craving, attachment, along with the dosa and moha, the ignorance. So many people believe that using alcohol is pleasant and comforting. The same attitude is held by the users of tobacco, heroin, cannabis. So because that is the general notion. It is pleasurable, it is comforting, and it creates euphoria. So those are the normal things. Now we have to look at this euphoria part very, 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 very closely. Immediately following the consumption of alcohol, some users report a feeling of well-being and reduced anxiety. This leads to the general belief that the effects of alcohol are pleasant, euphoric, and anxiety reducing. We call it anxiolytic, and users believe accordingly. However, research findings in this area of alcohol expectancies suggest that the euphoric effects of alcohol and other drugs, such as getting high, getting a kick, occur not due to the real pharmacological effect of those substances, but due to the individual's expectations, beliefs, and their positive attitudes towards alcohol and drugs. So actually, Buddhist psychology will shed light on this factor, right? How much euphoric the depressant alcohol. We categorize it under depressant, no? Alcohol. Even the opiates are depressants, heroin, right? Depressants. But after using heroin, after using alcohol, they pretend as they have imbibed some stimulants. No, alcohol is a depressant. Very soon we are going to look into that. So expectancies, so these are the expectancies. From childhood, they were bombarded about, children bombarded about these expectancies, right? Expectancies in Buddhist psychology are named apekkha or pattana, a form of lobha. So people can develop these expectancies, but they are always combined with the mental factor moha, the ignorance. The ignorance and the lobha go together and develop these expectancies, alcohol expectancies, drug expectancies. So if you ask some people, why did you use alcohol or drugs? They say, for pleasure, to ease tiredness, right? To solve problems, to be creative. They come up with various things. None of them were actually the chemical effects or the pharmacological properties of those substances. We will look into that. This is the unskilled root of moha, ignorance. Okay? Ignorance. They cannot see the reality of the substance use. They see the pain, they see the pain and suffering as pleasure. Actually, the alcohol experience, drug experience, if you look at more carefully, you will see it is nothing but pain and suffering. It is nothing but pain and suffering. But we cannot see, most of the people can't see this reality. They see the pain and suffering as pleasure. They take the pain and suffering from alcohol and drugs as pleasure. Tense as relaxation. Dependence as confidence. Harmful as healthy. Non-beneficial as beneficial. So that is moha. If someone takes, okay, pain and suffering as pleasure, that is nothing but ignorance. Okay. Then the tense as relaxation, it is nothing but ignorance. Right? Harmful as healthy, it is nothing but moha, the ignorance. So due to their ignorance, moha, alcohol and other drug users get deceived and trapped into the guile, hypocrisy, deceit or craftiness of alcohol industry and drug cartel. So this is the maya, the deceit of the alcohol industry. The deceit, the maya, illusion. The demand for alcohol and drugs is not natural but created through maya. Even in Buddhist texts, they say, maya cha mahajanang vancheti. Maya cha mahajanang vancheti. It is here. Maya, this is how you write maya cha mahajanang vancheti. That means maya deceives the general public. Alcohol industry deceives the general public. Tobacco industry deceives the general public. Drug mafia deceives the general public, introducing their products as pleasurable, helpful, beneficial, healthy. But we know, even with the support of the researchers now confirmed by the World Health Organization, it is not healthy, it is not beneficial, right? It increases problems. So this is nothing but the maya of the alcohol industry, tobacco industry, and the drug cartel. Okay. For example, alcohol impairs the coordination of the limbs, yet some consume it before, for instance, dance to perform better. So it is, however, the subjective belief that alcohol increases self-confidence that enables the better performance. Further, users and non-users alike often believe that alcohol enhances social communication and comradeship. This results in the perception of alcohol as a symbol of camaraderie and as a substance that minimizes social distinction and differences. Okay, you become, they believe that they become socialized after using alcohol, which is completely wrong notion, right? Alcohol is therefore expected to be a substance that brings cheerfulness, good fellowship, and friendliness, which are highly valued by human beings. And alcohol users are often observed to be more open and talkative following the use of alcohol. So that we can see that. But the question is whether is it a pharmacological reaction or the pharmacological property, or something that we have learned through classical condition, operant condition, and through social learning. So that is the question that we are going to learn, or what we are going to study in this. The conventional wisdom or the commonplace understanding of the intoxicants in society is based on the belief that alcohol and other drugs have pharmacological effects on the brain that cause one to lose all inhibitions and engage in behaviors that are not possible when sober. Due to this maya or moha, the ignorance, and with the attachment to that, the craving, the lobha, the individuals with AUD or SUD, substance use disorder, they not only use the substance, but they just worship is as an idol. Okay, they just worship the substances as well. So they think that all the power comes to them with these substances. And we earlier discussed, let us go to that place where I asked, why do we need a religion? Then people came up with various reasons. Now you can see that it gives me the meaning and purpose to my life. I feel really good after engaging in practices. I fear something bad will happen if I do not engage in the ritual. It gives me enormous satisfaction, the rituals followed by the religion. So likewise, people, they just, respect their religion, and they go, they just have the refuge with that religion. And if you look at the AUD person, or a person with AUD or SUD, they also, in the same manner, they just worship the heroin or other drug, right? If you ask them, why do you use heroin? What do you think about heroin? What do you think about alcohol? With a person suffering with AUD or with the AUD, they may come up with the same thing. It gives me the meaning and purpose to my life. The heroin gives me the meaning and purpose to my life, right? I have heard this from various drug dependent individuals. They say, this is my life, right? It gives me meaning and purpose to my life. Heroin, I feel really good after engaging in practice or after engaging in the heroin use, right? I fear something bad will happen if I do not engage in the ritual, if I do not use heroin. So this is the fear. The withdrawal discomfort is actually nothing but this fear. So even in that, the certain element of dosa, the ill will, is there in the withdrawal discomfort. Sometimes we don't understand it very directly, but in this discussion, later on, once we analyze the withdrawal discomfort, we will discuss that part in detail. So the refuge, in sometimes in Pali we can say, Natti me saranang anyang, heroin me saranang warang. This is the heroin users' attitude about the substances. I have no any other refuge. Natti me saranang anyang. I have no any other refuge. Heroin me saranang warang, other than the use of heroin. That too, they come to that level. So if it gives me enormous satisfaction, the drug use gives me enormous satisfaction, then shared rituals with my friends, and traditions foster the sense of belonging. Sometimes they are not dependent on the substance, but they are more dependent on their friends and the rituals. Even in the drug using context, we can see it provides comfort and solace in the face of life's uncertainties, hardships, and tragedies. Because of the problems, I used heroin. So this is what they say. Sometimes I ask, why did you use heroin in my treatment centers where I earlier had I managed? Then they say, I had a lot of problems. Then I ask them, what has happened to the problems after using heroin? Then they, at a point, they admit actually the problems aggravated and new problems also arised. So all this is misconceptions, no? But this is how they have a view on these things. And it provides comfort and solace in the face of life's uncertainties. It can offer hope and resilience for me. Once I use heroin, once I use the next dose of alcohol, it really gives me kind of, relaxation, right? And it is the culture and tradition in my area using this. So the traditional and the cultural part of the substance use. So all that. So what I try to emphasize is, they are not only using substances, but they earlier we discussed, they adore, they love, and they believe, and they worship the substances as well. So removing this attitude, removing this ideologies, you can't do it with a medicinal pill, but with a psychological intervention only, that you can remove these wrongly held misbehaviors. So that is why removing the craving, removing these attachments, removing the moha, the ignorance that they have created throughout. So all that is actually a major component in the treatment process. Okay, so we went through the religious part of it, and let us come to the place where we were having the discussion. We know that the alcohol, right, it impairs the coordination of the limbs, yet some consume it before, for instance, for dance, perform better. We discussed that. However, the subjective feeling that alcohol increases self-confidence that enable better performances. Further, users and non-users alike often believe that alcohol enhances social communication and comradeship. This results in the perception of alcohol as a symbol of camaraderie and as a substance that minimizes social distinctions and differences. Alcohol is therefore expected to be the substance that brings cheerfulness, good fellowship, and friendliness, which are highly valued by human beings. And alcohol users are often observed to be more open, talkative, following the use of alcohol. So this is what they have culturally learned, what they have learned socially, right? So we can see this is how individuals of SUD think about the substances. There are substances as well. We took the alcohol example. Even the heroin user also thinks in the same way. The cannabis users also think in the same manner. The communion, the group that they use the cannabis, the way that they share their substances, right? All that gives value to the substance use. Okay, so the conventional wisdom or the commonplace understanding of the intoxicants, such as alcohol, heroin, everything, in society is based on the belief that alcohol and other drugs have pharmacological effects on the brain that cause one to lose all inhibitions and engage in behaviors that are not possible when sober. The general public and even some professionals in the medical, legal professions also share this belief. After using substances, they don't know what they are doing. So that is the common belief that people have. So that is a benefit for the user, no? Now I can engage in any bad behavior and later on say, sorry, I was under the influence of substances, right? And others also just pardon that behavior, and then his problem is over. People allow people to misbehave and later pardon with this substance use. So that is an advantage. Hence, an individual dependent on the drug or alcohol tends to receive less blame than their sober counterpart, decidedly an advantage to the alcohol or drug user. This general belief also creates a permissive environment in the family, in the neighborhood, and in the community, allowing individuals the freedom to behave irresponsibly. Contrary to this popular belief, research on the effects of alcohol and other drugs shows that most of the behavioral effects of alcohol are are not actually due to the pharmacological effects. For instance, in a study by Sean, subjects were asked to rate their alcohol expectations. Ranging from a large group of positive expectancies, the analysis of the finding revealed certain common global expectations: social or physical pleasure, assertiveness, relaxation, tension reduction, So all these are the, conventional wisdom, let us say it. At a certain point in the history, a period, people thought the earth is flat. The earth is flat. So that was the conventional wisdom at that time. So even in the universities, even in many places, they taught that earth is flat during those days. So after Galileo's, discoveries and various other scientific discoveries, only people now came to the conclusion that earth is not flat, at least, and it is round. So it took so many years for people to arrive at that conclusion. Just as that, even with the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, people have wrong notions, the conventional wisdom that this is all happened because of the pharmacological effects of the alcohol. But very carefully, when we see, we can think about that these are not really the pharmacological effect, but the mind-made things. So we can see that how alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use is motivated through the craving. So we are now discussing about this craving, the urge that they created, which is not natural, but actually it is created craving. And even now, I think you are in a position to identify the mental factor lobe, the attachment or craving operates in the DSM-5 11 signs of substance use disorder. Now, let us look at. Now, please concentrate on this and see in all these 11 signs how the craving, the attachment plays a role, a vital role. Now, for example, taking the substance in more significant amounts or longer than the individual is meant to. So that shows the desire, the impulse, always need more and more, always need more and more, right? Even in the story of Romeo and Juliet, you would have observed that Romeo wanted to see Juliet more and more because of the desire, because of the impulse. Just as that, even the taking the substance in more significant amount or longer than the individual is meant, now it has gone out of control, like, due to the craving, So that is a mental factor, lobe. Then the second one, wanting to cut down, I want to cut down or stop using the substance, but not managing to. That shows the bondage, the bond. It is so bonded. When we are bonded to certain things, we can't separate it. We cannot separate from that. So from the mind, we create this bond. Wedlock is one of those bondages. Some are positive, maybe, sometimes. Okay. Anyhow, they create the bonding. The bonding is craving, the bandhana, right? It is a manifestation of the craving, the urge, the lobha. Then spending much time using and recovering from substance use. Why? They have given value to the substance. Now there is value added to the substance. Okay. So that is also actually a kind of lobha, because you give value to that. It is important to you, right? So the attachment is there. Craving and urges to use substance. Anyway, that craving and urge is there. This is nothing but the mental factor, lobha, we discussed. And not managing to do what you should do at work, home, or school because of the substance use. Because the one and only thing is substance use for him. Now, earlier, he used to play cricket, maybe he used to swimming, or he used to meet friends. Now, in that time also, he engaged in substance use, given priority to that because of the attachment, the lobha, maybe even the Romeo. He had many other activities those days, practicing how to handle the sword and various other music or other things. Now, all the time, he thinks about the Juliet. because of this attachment, right? Actually, I invite you to apply this to the Romeo's situation, how he gradually developed the dependency over Juliet, right? And you see, there must be a brain change also with that. But how the mindset change, how the mind get changed by the time. Okay, so those are the things that we have to think and identify the real etiology of the substance use. Why do people use substances? Right, then continue to use even when it causes problems in relationships, right? Because the priority is this. When we have a priority, we have an attachment to that. We made an importance to that. So that is a kind of attachment, craving. So in Buddhist psychology, it is explained in that way. The chanda, we discuss that as chanda. There is good chanda and bad chanda. When it is with the drug use, of course, it is bad chanda because he's going to use substances, no, with that craving, with that desire, right? Continue to use even when it causes problems in relationships. We discuss the priority. Giving up important social, occupational, and recreational activities because substance use. So the priority is given. He has lost the control. The lust, the craving. So they can see the craving part there. Using substance repeatedly, even when they put you in danger. The attachment. Whatever the problems come, I want to see Juliet. Don't stop me seeing Juliet, even it is very, very dangerous. So the craving part, the attachment part, the individuals are attached to substances. Then continuing to use even when you know you have a physical or psychological problem that could have been caused or made worse by the substance use. That is holding. Now you can't give it up. So you have to maintain that. Because you like it, you adore it, you want it. Need more substance to get the desired effect, tolerance. Need more and more. You need more and more all the time. Maybe in the Romeo and Juliet also. Once a time, okay, one time in the day, maybe that he wanted to see Juliet. Next comes, he want to see Juliet in the morning, and even afternoon. Then even the morning, daytime, afternoon, even at midnight also, he wanted to see Juliet. Likewise, it increased. Okay. So we may say that the gradual progression, the tolerance, is it the chemical reaction or it is mind-made? That is the question that we have to raise. Need more substance to get the desired effect, the tolerance, more and more. Develop of withdrawal symptoms can be relieved by taking more of the substance. Suppose a day, there were many restrictions. The Romeo cannot go and see Juliet due to those restrictions. So when he is at home, all the withdrawal discomfort is there. He feels very bad. But the moment he goes secretly and see Juliet, all that vanishes. Okay, so you can apply this and see whether the psychological part, the psychological component of this addiction. Okay, so if we get a picture of the brain of Romeo at that time, how it would have seen? Think about it. Okay, but we know main thing is that the attachment, that a person who uses substances or people who with the SUD or the AUD, right? For the physical parts, the medicine is important. For any co-occurring psychiatric disorders, of course, the medicine is very important. But we have to focus the attachment part, the craving part, to how to remove that craving, how to remove that attachment. Of course, the Buddhist psychology will shed light on this. So in the future presentations, we will discuss how Buddhist psychology could be utilized for this. And now I like to confirm what we discuss. I like to take the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria on gambling disorder. Gambling disorder. Now in gambling, there is nothing go to your system. No. In AUD, you think the alcohol goes, right? In SUD, some substance take, and we think it is the substance that do everything, not the craving, not the attachment. So that is how sometimes we tend to think. But this DSM-5 diagnostic criteria of gambling disorder will shed light on this. I invite you all to consider this very carefully. And if you see a patient, recurrent problematic gambling behavior leading to clinically significant impairment or distress, then we have to see last 12 months, what were the characteristics. On that only that we measure the severity and consider his gambling disorder. Need to gamble with increased amounts of money in order to achieve the desired excitement. The tolerance part is there, right? He need more and more money. Now earlier he put about, say, betting or something, say $10. Then it increased to $25, then to $100, then to $1,000. So to get the same excitement. So there is an increase. Okay. The tolerance. Then is restless or irritable when attempting to cut down or stop gambling. Nothing went to his system. No. Nothing went to his brain. Nothing absorbed to his brain. But this is the habit, habituation, addiction, develop dependency on that. So when it is stopped, right, he become restless. This is the withdrawal discomfort. Withdrawal discomfort. So even a gambler, if you not allow him to go for gambling, if you keep him home, you will see he is very restless. All the withdrawal discomforts, very similar to, I would say, right, very similar to the heroin withdrawal or most of the substance withdrawal. We can see withdrawal symptoms, we can see in the compulsive gambler. If you not allow him to go and gamble. Then the third, has repeatedly failed to control, cut back or stop gambling. The same thing, right? Then is often preoccupied with gambling, right? All the time, like having persistent thoughts all the time. Now he is thinking about the gambling, right? When people bet on horses, sometimes they, from the morning, they go through the history of that particular horse, how many races he won, the understanding the context, all that, all this is time consuming. Often gamble when feeling distress, right? When he feel helpless, he gambles. When he feels guilty, he gambles. When he feel anxious, he gambles. When he feel depressed, he gambles, right? But heroin user, when someone feel depressed, heroin user use heroin, gambler engage in gambling. So it depends on what kind of a priority, what kind of learning that he had prior to this, the selecting of the alternatives. Maybe another person's alternative is to have a very good cold shower. Depend on his experience. Lies to conceal the extent of involvement with gambling. He lies, tell lies about it. Has jeopardized or lost significant relationship, job or educational or career opportunities because of gambling. Relies on others to provide money to relieve desperate financial situation caused by gambling. So out of these symptoms, if someone has 4 to 5, the severity is mild. 6 to 7 criteria met, then it is moderate, and 8 or 9 we categorize it as severe. Now compare this DSM-5 gambling and the DSM-5 SUD and the DSM-5 AUD components, and you will see the similarity there. So in gambling, there is nothing go to your system, no? Nothing goes to your system. But in AUD and SUD, simply because you take a substance, you think everything happens because of the substance. The attachment, the craving part is undermined. Unless you treat for that, the treatment is not completed. So that is why that we have to look into certain methods employed to overcome the craving enshrined in the early Buddhist literature, in Buddhist psychology. That is why this learning will help you to support someone who is with this AUD, SUD disorder, AUD problems. Not only that, to prevent that. When working with children, when working with youth in the area of prevention, that the same theories would be employed. How to do that, we are going to discuss in our future presentations. Right. Now, according to the Buddhist psychology, the disorders in Pali term, it is said as ummada. Ummada. Ummada means, you can see it here. Ummada, let me make it bigger. Ummada means psychological disorders. So in Buddhism, in Buddhist psychology, they talk about 8 kind of ummadas, 8 kind of psychological disorders. One is the kama ummada. Kama ummada. Kama is attachment, craving, all that part. The kama ummada, the sexual dysfunction, greed, attachment. Based on these things, the people get psychological disorders. The alcohol dependency, drug dependencies also connected to this. And the krodha ummada, the anger, trauma, mania. So that is called krodha. Krodha means anger, krodha, right? Dosa. Krodha, dosa, ill will, anger. Then the darshana ummada. Darshana is seeing, what you see. This is hallucinations, right? Hallucination, darshana ummada. Then the moha ummada, because of your ignorance, the mental retardation, no, various other things. So simply because of your ignorance, you have certain ummadas, certain psychological disorders. Then the yaksha ummada, the demonic. That means actually that they create from their mind a demon, or they develop a fixed idea, and removing that fixed idea also should be a psychological process. But at the same time, to manage the symptoms, that medication is also important. Then the pitta ummada, the biological ummadas, that is the biological ones, reasons biological. Then the categorically, even some 2,500 years ago, during the time of Buddha, the Buddha explained the sura ummada, alcohol dependency. Now the DSM-5 discuss about AUD, alcohol use disorder, and SUD, substance use disorder. So Buddhist psychology, even in very early texts, the sura ummada was mentioned, right? Alcohol dependency. Then the vyasana ummada, that is vyasana ummada, means vyasana is a kind of a catastrophe. Okay, due to that, people create certain depression due to traumatic experiences. So that is called ummada also. So the comorbidities and the conditions that are simultaneously present, the co-occurring disorders with AUD and SOD, that we can see, that we have to take it all. The sura ummada is in the middle. That sura ummada is there, right? Sura ummada is there, right? And we can see that kama ummada, krodha ummada, moha ummada, and here you can see this other kind of ummadas also, right? Let me fix it a little bit, possible, yes. And you can see this, the Sura Ummada is in the middle, but there are Kama Ummada, Krodha Ummada, Moha Ummada, Yaksha Ummada, Vyasana Ummada, Pitta Ummada, all that we can see here. So the comorbidities coming with SUD and coming with AUD. So even some 2,500 years ago, the Buddhist psychology, the Buddhist theories analyze these things. And now we can actually go through this and we can look into this and understand. So this will shed light on how to incorporate the Buddhist psychological principles in our prevention and treatment efforts. So this is not actually overruling that substances have no pharmacological impact on the brain. When we take alcohol, when we take opiates, right, it goes to brain, then it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and then it reacts with the brain cells. So we are not overruling that. But what is we are trying to emphasize here is the mental factors, how operates, right? How the attachment and craving operates. So we will discuss later in the next presentation how alcohol reacts to brain. Actually, it's a depressant. It reacts as a depressant. But most people react after consuming alcohol or other opiates just as they have taken stimulants. Okay? Alcohol is a depressant. And then these opiates are depressants, we know, right? Depress the nervous system. But after imbibing alcohol, people behave like that they have taken a stimulant, right? So that part is the psychological part. So the placebos were given, especially Professor Andrew Marlett, who studied about this relapse prevention, did this bar lab experiments and shown the psychological effects of, right? When the bottle is present, when the alcohol bottle is taken, the people become euphoric. They start talking loud. They haven't taken the substance yet. But when the environment is set, the context is set, all these things occur. The psychological impact. So in the next episode, we will discuss Buddhist psychological theories, the expectancy theory, the papañca and apañca, the distortions and the pervasions of alcohol and drugs expectancies. We call it vipallāsa, and how alcohol and drug become attractive through proliferation, papañca. So that is the way. So you can follow the next episode or the next presentation also. I invite you all. So at the same time, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. Thank you very much for paying your attention to very important area, the missing link in the alcohol and drugs prevention and treatment, the Buddhist psychological interventions with mindfulness and with pañña. Thank you very much. Thank you all.